All right, all right, all right. Welcome, family. Welcome once again to another episode of Mosaic. Excuse me, The Lab by JShoulders. As you can see, I'm still rebranding, so I'm still getting used to that. The Lab with JShoulders, but it is still presented by Mosaic Entertainment Group. Welcome, family. It's good to see you tonight. As I'm waiting for my guest, Mr. Marc Thompson, to come on into the broadcast. I just wanted to once again reiterate to everyone to please hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Um, Make sure you share this around. Make sure you hit that like button because it helps with the algorithms, and it helps get the broadcast out there so people can take a look at this awesome conversation. All right, he came in here. It is my brother, Mr. Marc Thompson. How are you doing this evening, sir? How are you? How are you?
Hey, Jermaine, good to see you.
Good to see you, my brother and family. I want to introduce. Well, I'm gonna let him introduce himself, but first, as it has been in some episodes of my show, I have brought on some people from um, my past, my youth. And Mr. Marc Thompson is another example of an individual, young brother who's come out of the community that I come from back in New York in the Bronx, and has one has as many people have from the community overcome what they say overcome the odds. His outcome is not typically what an outcome from someone from our neighborhood usually does. You know what I'm saying? So, without further ado, audience, please welcome Mr. Marc Thompson, minister, and is it safe to say youth advocate as well, Marc?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Minister and youth advocate, Mr. Marc Thompson. Everybody, virtual round of applause. Thank you very much for coming on
Oh,
my show today, my brother.
thank you so
How
much
are
for
you?
having me. All things are fantastic.
Awesome. So introduce yourself, man. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
I'm Marc Thompson. Um, I'm a community advocate, minister, servant to the people of, our community. Really want to see people do well. Come from Soundview Projects, raised in a single parent household. Dad was incarcerated. Mom, has 6 kids, but beat the odds. And just happy to be here on the show.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much, man, for taking the time out of your night. I know it's late back there on the East Coast, but hours when we out here doing the work, for the community. So, Marc, tell my community, man, a little bit of like what you do out there. So, I introduced you as a minister and also as a community advocate. So, tell me some of the things that you're doing, that you're involved in the
Beautiful.
community, and what you do actually as either a business or as an employment.
Good. Currently, I'm the director of business development for a college where I help people find employment, internships. Um, People look at me as a connector. I connect with corporate companies and build partnerships with them, where it can bring value into the community. Currently with the pandemic, it's so vitally important to be able to foster relationships with businesses. Normally, with no pandemic, I'm normally at countless networking events. However, I've been able to use Zoom during the past like 9 months to build partnerships with organizations. Like I attend a lot of networking events, and what I'm finding is these partnerships are creating job flow, internships, and now with the pandemic, many people in our communities they need food. They also need clothing. So I've been able
Hmm.
to foster partnerships there with various organizations. Just recently, I formed a partnership with a Harlem organization where on Martin Luther King Day they gave out over 200 coats, gloves, hats, to the community. So things like that I'm passionate about because growing up in the urban sector, there was always someone there that took care of me. Like my mom was a single parent mother, you know,
Mhm.
public assistance, and she worked real hard to raise 6 kids and go back to school and get her college degree. She did. But I know during that particular period, a lot of times mom didn't have money to send me to camp, and somebody always stepped up and blessed me so I could go to camp. And not only did they open up opportunity for me to go to camp, they also, pay for my items that I needed, you know,
Mm.
toothbrushes, soap. I mean, always been blessed. And even when I went to the university, I went to Fordham University. Fordham was gracious enough to, pay 90% of my education. They paid for all my books. So that's what I mean about always being put in a position where I was blessed. So now I've always felt like this is my opportunity to give back to my community. So seeing young kids do well, like we formed some partnerships with the Brooklyn Nets, where like for the past few years we've taken like 30 plus kids to the Brooklyn Nets games. My pastor, Reverend Earl Jones Sr. at First Calvary Baptist in Brooklyn, he's a tremendous leader, but following his lead, it's important to him to serve our community. And I've, been under his tutelage for a couple of years. So that's why I'm really passionate about helping our community as well.
All right, brother. So what? Like I said, man. Like I said, where we come from, man. This is not something that you normally hear. So what drove that the desire in you to serve the
Um,
community? What drove that desire, brother? What kicked that off for you, man?
I just want to see people do well. Like as a minister, your job is to be a servant to the community, and you can serve in various ways. Ministers, they do funerals, they do baptisms, they do weddings, they teach, they provide spiritual guidance to the community. So that's what I mean by serving. But
Mm.
it's more specifically, like at my church in Brooklyn, I'm the co-president of the Media Arts Ministry, where we handle like the Instagram, Facebook for the church. We document various events. That's a way to serve your community. I'm also, like the president of the men's ministry, and that's where we work closely with the men. We had before the pandemic, we had locker room sessions. We had motivational sessions with the men. We had empowerment sessions like every third Wednesday of the month. Men in marital relationships who may be having some challenges, men looking for employment, men looking for ways to build their credit. That's what I mean. And,
Mm.
right
Mm.
now with the pandemic, one thing I find people need encouragement. So creating platforms where people can get encouragement to keep moving forward is very important.
All right,
So
people. Yeah, people need encouragement, man. We need
yes,
to see, so especially as black men, man, of course I can go down the laundry list of
mhm,
marginalization throughout throughout history. I won't
yes,
even, ring that bell right now, man. But, just understanding the history of um how we're viewed in this country just as black men. Was that also something that you kind of said, as a black man, I may have come up this way, but I'm going to make sure I make my stamp in a community where I can affect the lives of other young black men so they can go, in such and such directions. Because you didn't necessarily go quite like a bad direction, what I'm saying? It's just kind of where life kind of led you and you made certain decisions. But you have so much to offer. So did you have that mind state of, what,
I,
as a black man, like I need to take this responsibility and take it a step further?
great question. I mean, my story is so different. After high school, I wasn't thinking about college, but in Soundview Projects, I ran into some challenges on New Year's Eve where I almost lost my life, and
Mm.
that experience actually forced me into the university. I was scared straight, as you would
Okay.
say. And then after going into the
Ah.
university and reading the book about Malcolm X, that changed my life. The autobiography of Malcolm
Wow.
X, and that made me that created this burning desire within me to really want to empower and uplift my community and men in particular,
Mm,
and more so the younger men.
mm,
So I really credit the Black church for really inspiring me to want to be a good example as a Black man in my community. Because our young kids need to see that. Growing up in Soundview Projects, we saw crime, we saw people selling drugs, we saw poverty. So I wanted to affect change in my community. So now that's why I love serving the Bronx community, the Brooklyn community, serving at food pantries, partnering with organizations that's going to bring clothing into our community, um,
mm.
forming partnerships with GED centers, um, as a to help our young boys who may not take that typical path and go to high school, but creating relationships with GED centers throughout the city, which I've done, where they can actually go into those centers, get the GED, and then transition into college. So that's
Wow.
where I believe like God has used me.
So a solution. So what you're doing is you're helping to create solutions. You're not
Yes,
just saying, you just stating the obvious of what's going on in the community. You're actually creating, not actually creating. You're actually doing something. You're
yes,
doing something. You're affecting something. You're not just talking about it, right?
absolutely. And think about it. Have you ever thought about the cost to house a prisoner in the penitentiary per year?
Mm-mm.
The
No.
cost. Average cost to house a prisoner in the penitentiary is about 70,000 per year. Sometimes more, 70 to 110,000. When you pay for the food, room and board, 170 to 110,000. You know what
Wow.
NYU is right now per semester?
I would guess about the same.
50K. So think about it.
Wow.
That particular person can go to NYU for the year, 50K, let's say. 4 years, that's 200K. But then when you think about the cost to house a prisoner, 70,000, 7, 14, 20, and 28, that's 280,000 if we take the low end, to house a prisoner for 4 years. So I think as like the community, we have to, find solutions to motivate our young men not to take that path that leads to prison and lead to either college. And another key point I want to bring up today: sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we our young men may not be so interested in college, but we have to bring trade programs that they can enter into. I just did some research recently. Um, Areas like carpentry, construction, HVAC, um, plumbing, um, installing locks. They do really well in those particular career paths. So I think as a community, we have to have more forums where we can educate our kids and put them in positions where they can get trades along with college. And I think a lot of times, many of the young men I've encountered, they're not thinking about college. However,
Mm.
they may be interested in construction. They may be interested in, installing locks or carpentry. And, I did research on the carpentry area. Guess what? You can make anywhere from $16 to $52. So
Wow.
that's a nice little income
Hey,
for
especially for a young man, you know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
And coming out of high school who has no interest, you know what I'm
So,
saying? And you don't have much responsibility. So something like outside of yourself. So, a job like that, 16, 17, 18 bucks an hour, that's great. And you're working
absolutely.
with your hands, right?
And another thing I think we need to do too, form partnerships with organizations that would actually empower our kids to get various certificates that will make them marketable in the construction sector. That's another like
Mm,
area that I've been looking into.
mm.
So, and doing research on organizations that are work closely with people who have been informally, incarcerated. We try to build the bridge where if they did A, those organizations will step in and do B. So, and I mean, I work in the educational sector, so I support like students who pursue the bachelor's degrees and associate degrees and MBA degrees as well. So, which are
Wow,
basically
man. So
looking at it in their various perspectives.
right, right, man. So we can't, man. That takes us out of the mind state of that we have to follow this mold of graduating high school, going straight to college, going to work for someone else, clocking in for 80 hours or 40 hours a week. It kind of breaks that mold, man, and it kind of, sets us on the path of independence, really. You know what I mean? So what you're doing, that's really, really, if you want to go there, that's really kind of the reparations that we really need. You know what I mean? Where we are our own reparation. We repair ourselves. You know what I mean? So what you're actually doing is, I'm sure you understand, is a lot deeper than just, what I'm saying, helping these young brothers who come out of prison, helping these young boys who may not think about going to college, who could learn a trade or skill. What you're doing is actually resetting the mindset of an entire generation. You know what I mean? Of young men who now have options and who can see the world through not through tunnel vision of I have to go this route, but
Yes,
now can open up to where now I can be an entrepreneur, I can be a business owner,
sir.
um, especially if he takes this particular skill and starts a business with it. That's where I'm saying you can apply. I see where you can apply the vocational skill with the college education. You see what I'm saying? You can combine the two, and now you got your bachelor's degree. You know what I'm saying? And you now can start this business because you have the practical experience and now you have the business knowledge.
Absolutely. Yes. So
Wow. Yeah.
think about Malcolm X for a minute. Incredibly gifted and talented, but because he, was brought up in that urban sector and, was told by his teacher that, he couldn't be a lawyer because he didn't have the potential. All
Mm-hmm.
that talent, Malcolm went astray and started doing things that wasn't productive to, who he was supposed to become at that particular time, and went to prison. And when he
Mm.
went to prison, he started using his full potential and came out and impacted our community in a profound way. There's so many Malcolms walking through Harlem as we speak. There's so many young Malcolms
Man.
through Brooklyn, so many Malcolms walking through the Bronx. But if they don't have people like you and myself reaching out to them and giving them encouragement to use their potential and create new pathways that they can travel, how can they become Malcolm, right? Or a Martin? So I'm just trying to serve where God is using me, and that's to bring
Absolutely.
encouragement and direction for those young Malcolms in our community. So I've been on both sides of the fence. I've lived in public housing, and now I'm a homeowner. You know, I've done things in the street that weren't so good. Now I'm doing everything in my power to uplift my two daughters and my wife.
Right.
So I've been blessed to be on both sides of the fence. I'm in academia
Man.
with people with doctorate degrees, MBAs, associate
we
degrees.
Man, we a couple of kids from the Bronx, man.
Yes,
We a couple of kids from the Soundview section of the Bronx, man, who when we were younger, family, I would watch this brother play basketball, you know what I'm saying? And, I played basketball at that age as well. And, and that's how I remember Mark, you know what I mean? And always smiling, he always having a good time, always, you appeared to me always so um I hate the word jovial, but always just, you always seem to be in a good mood. I never saw you angry. I never saw you down. I never, I even remember the reunion game in Stevenson. I didn't know how you got to play in that game, but you was on the layup line. I don't know if you remember. It's so many different memories I have of you, man, and there's only so few people that stick out in my mind, man. We're talking 30 plus years, you know what I mean? And these are the memories. So when I started seeing you on social media, and this is the blessing of social media, and I have to agree with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, man, when he said, the minister, when he said that the internet was made for for black people, it was made for us, man, because you know
Yes.
what? We get to, reunite, and we're getting to see the lives of the people that we once knew as youngsters, man, are
Mm-hmm.
now playing out, man, in such magnificent ways, especially from people from our community, man. And we got, Kimber Walker come from our community, man, and
Yes.
he talked, he came along after I was long gone out of out of that community. So um, it's just a testament, man, to see where you are, to where I remember where you've been, and to hear what you're saying, man. Just that alone,
Mhm.
is very inspirational. You know what I'm saying? And it's very, for me, you know what I'm saying? It makes me say, you know what? They said a lot of bad things about our generation, brother. But
Yes, sir.
one thing they can say, we were the children of the civil rights generation, so we still had that strength, we still had that resilience, we still had that respect for our elders as much as we
Mm-hmm.
possibly could. Crack ravaged in the community. Some of us, this is where the single parent home things really started jumping off in our generation. But
Yes.
to see just because you come from that community don't mean that you're of that community. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? And
And,
it's just a testament to you, my brother.
thank you so much. And I really give credit to we had some pillars in our community. We stand on their shoulders, like Miss Tate, Miss Fleming, Mrs.
Mm-hmm.
Coleman. These were individuals
Mm-hmm.
in our community who came and got us and took us to like summer jobs, took us to summer lunch, took us to Kips Bay
Yep.
Boys Club. We stand on their
Yep.
shoulders. People like
Bear
Trenton
Mountain.
Tate, right? Trenton
Yeah.
Tate set the example. He told us, if you go to college, you can make something out of yourself. And seeing him come home from college, dressed up, speaking different, he motivated me. He lived in the same building with me, and
Mm.
I look at Trenton Tate as like one of my heroes. His brother Chris Tate was like my best friend growing up, but Trenton was older than us, and I told him that. But that those we have to remember, like people like them who made a difference in our lives. That's what inspires me
Absolutely.
to want to help other people as well too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that the youth of this generation is kind of missing, man, because we came from an era where we still had the older guys in the community who
Hmm.
looked out, what I'm saying, for the younger guys, man, especially if they saw wasn't out there being
Yes.
idiots or who may have been in unfortunate situations. They've been able to transcend and do things because Trenton went to school. He had, what I'm saying, I remember him. He was a prolific basketball player,
Yes, he
a
was one of the
prolific
best.
scorer, one of the best point guards New York City has produced,
Hmm.
and, a pro am player, but always with a smile on my face, on his face, walking through the hood, man. And he had nothing but respect and love from everybody. Nobody I know ever had nothing bad to say about this particular brother, about his younger brother, who also was equally a good player, played college
Yes,
ball as well.
one of the
You know
best.
what I'm saying? Chris Tate, one of the best, point guards under 6 feet, you know what
To
I'm saying,
shoot.
to play the game. You know what I mean? So that's what we talking about. That's where we coming from. That's where we come from. Is I'm
Yeah.
trying to set that for the audience. So you see, man, we not, brothers didn't just, pop up one day and decide, oh, I'm gonna do a podcast about this, and talk to this guy. No, man, we got history. Like we come from a place where we still had brothers that looked out. I remember the bigger dudes would beat you up. The bigger
Yes.
dudes would put you in situations where you had to learn how to defend yourself. And if you
Hmm.
didn't, one of them would take you aside and say, look, man, you can't act like this. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look where you at. So you always kind of had that you had and that's when the crack era really hit, man. Some of the older guys started getting, going away, getting,
Mm-hmm.
and things started really changing. And right at that moment is when I left the community. And
Okay.
at the time, you probably didn't know at the time because I hid it pretty well from a lot of people until I couldn't anymore. I was actually doing a lot of television at the time.
Okay.
I was performing on stage. I was doing plays down on Broadway, brother. I was down in
Wow.
Harlem doing plays in Harlem. Um, and I was also doing commercials. So I was shooting basketball commercials, fast food commercials.
Wow.
And what I'm saying? So when we left the neighborhood, it was an opportunity to go to Los Angeles, man, and pursue that. So that was just before the 90s hit and all the gang stuff really started hitting, especially started hitting our neighborhood. I know you was around somewhat at that
Mm-hmm.
time. I don't know if you was on the block at that time. What was going on, man? Tell me about what was happening at that time, if you remember. Where were you? What were you doing? And what was the climate of the community? Because by the 90s, I was already gone.
During that particular time, like you said, the crack era was horrible in like the Soundview Project area. But I was blessed because I had employment in the Manhattan area. So I
Mm,
was coming home, leaving the community, going to work, going to school. So I was never in that particular circle. I would come home like at night and go home. And then we moved out of the community in 1990 to the Lower East Side area.
mm,
But we moved because the community was just that bad.
yeah,
The crack epidemic
yeah,
was horrific, and mom didn't really feel safe anymore. So that's when we transitioned out in 1990. But it was really bad.
yeah, man. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm hearing about just some of the people that we came up with, man. Started going that way. So it was like, wow, what's going on in my home? You know what I mean? And then come the 2000s, and things started changing, and the gentrification started coming in there, man, and really started moving
Hmm.
people out of the city. And so it's to see people still living there that I grew up with is kind of like, wow, y'all really stuck out. A lot of those
Yes.
things that was going on, the Giuliani era, the Dinkins era, um,
Hmm.
and whoever else was, um, whatever else was going on at that time, whoever else was the mayor, especially Giuliani, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
you still have that era. And the beauty of it, man, is that you had a job, you was going to school, so you was already set on a different path, just like myself.
Yes.
Some stayed, went through that, right, and still came out on top, right?
Right.
The brother from Soundview that's also a preacher that's going to a pastor and a minister that's going around the city and doing amazing things. I don't know if you're familiar with the brother.
Minister
Um,
Kwame Thompson.
yes, sir.
He's doing
Yes,
phenomenal
sir.
things in like the New York City
Yes.
Bronx community, heavily involved with the elected officials as well as the various police departments in the Bronx. Very vocal in the community. He's a good brother. We speak a lot.
Yes.
He's also doing a lot of things with various community centers in the Bronx area as well. He's active in the
Man.
community. He's a
Very,
difference
very
maker for Soundview as well.
really.
Yep,
So he's like a champion. Yeah.
champion. He's currently connected with various programs in Soundview that help bring change to people's lives educationally. When it comes to employment, he's doing a phenomenal job. He's connected with the church. He's done like various funerals for the community
Mm-hmm.
that I know about. I'm connected with him on
Mm,
Instagram as well.
mm. And
Yep.
and I remember seeing Kwame in the streets too, man. And it was and I actually got a chance to tell him when I went back home. Actually, I ran into him
Hmm.
when I went back home back in 2009. And he happened to be out there with some of the guys that I went to Soundview daycare and kindergarten with, and PS 107 with. They happened to be outside as I came up on the block, and Kwame happened to be out there. And I got a chance to
Hmm.
tell him exactly what I told you. He was doing it back then. You talk 2009, and he was putting in work back then. So,
Yes.
I got a chance to tell him, man, I saw you go from one thing to another, man. And to see that, that change is one reason why I created this podcast. I created this podcast because I wanted to help to do my part to change the narrative on us as a people and on us as black men in general. Okay,
Hmm.
we're not what others say we are. We are who we say we are. You know what I'm saying? We
Yes.
didn't allow people's definition of our generation, the hip hop generation, Generation X, to define who we were and who we became as men. Look at you,
Yes.
man. Degrees, married, family, homeowner in the Bronx, one of the most, and in New York City, one of the most expensive places in the world to even buy a home. You did it, man, and you know what I'm saying, and you're doing it. So it's a testament to our community. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it
Mhm.
was bad for certain, but look what it produced, man. You got two brothers. You got two brothers right now, live, right now, talking. You know what I'm saying? That from
Mhm.
that community. Brother Ron. I don't know if you remember Ron from Soundview. Ron is out here in Arizona now,
Oh, he is.
as
Oh,
well.
nice.
Yes, and he has a restaurant out here, man. Him and his family, beautiful family out here, man. And he lives in the city out here now. And we got to link up too, man. Just a couple kids again from Soundview, from Soundview out here in Arizona. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? And he's doing phenomenal things, man. He's built a beautiful business with his wife and his family. And,
Beautiful.
he's out here golfing and what I'm
Wow.
saying, and building. He's going up north to the mountains and stuff, man. So the brother and I, my wife and I, we patronized his business several times, man.
Mhm.
And we, got into conversations, man. And it's just a good feeling. And I hope I'm not sounding too cheesy, but
No, not
I'm
at
just,
all. Not at
it's
all.
just a lot of pride. You know what I mean? Just a lot of pride. And it gives me even more inspiration, just as a man, and more confidence. As a man, to be able to look at you, look at other brothers that's doing things and saying, "Hey, man, we are good. We are." And as you say, and as we spoke earlier, in the
Mhm.
green room, our children are watching us. You know what I'm
Yes, they
saying? No
are.
matter how old they are, they're clocking, man. So if we don't make the right moves, who knows? Who knows?
But you said the
So
key thing though about family.
yes.
That is so vitally important. Family, like strong families, you can change a community if you have strong families. And if you have faith, I mean, you can definitely change communities. So when I think about Kwame with his faith, I think about you with your faith and my faith, plus our family. That I think is the key thing to our success. I know for me, it's definitely the key thing.
Mm,
Having faith,
mm, mm,
you know, having strong families, having a vision of where I want my family to go. I think that
hmm.
has made the difference for me and my family so far.
Now let's go there a little bit because you know and I hate harping about where we come from, but you developed. Where did that sense of finding that faith? Where did that come
Um,
from, man? You becoming a minister, Kwame becoming a minister, so many other people. But for you in particular, for you to become a minister, what was the impetus to make you say, I need to pursue God, I need to pursue a spiritual path, and then turn that into real? Because that what you're doing is what Christ actually did. He actually did the work. You know what I'm saying? He didn't stand up in the synagogue all day and preach it. He went into the streets and he did the work. So what was that, and what was that for you? What was it for you that say, I need to go this path?
I think God basically led me that way to be a minister when I lost my job. I lost my job. I was making a great income, worked from home, and in the midst of losing that job, I realized how much I needed him at that particular point. And I mean, he provided for my needs. He took care of me, paid my mortgage, made sure my family didn't go without, and gave me the opportunity to see that all those things that I thought brought you joy and success really wasn't. And
Mm,
that's when I started, heading towards the ministry. And I, I've been with him ever since. And I
Mm,
had this passion to serve and give back to my community. And that's what I've been doing ever since. It's being a servant. Being a minister is about being a servant to your community. It's not about, sometimes you see TD Jakes and all these wonderful pastors on TV. That's not
mm. That's
the
not
type of
minister.
ministry.
That's not being a minister.
Yeah,
Right.
that's not being a minister. A minister is being a servant. Somebody coming to you
Right.
with needs. They're hungry. They have needs. They need clothing. They need food. They need housing. Um, they need you to go to court with them. You know,
Mm,
that's the type of
mm,
minister I am. Filling
mm.
needs like that. You need me to go to court to advocate for you. I'll be there. You need me to come to the hospital with you. I'll be there. That's the ministry I do. And
Wow.
it's wonderful, to be a servant for our people. That's the minister that God has called me to be. So,
Man, so that's what the word means, right? Because
be,
it's like a short for administer, right? So what you're
yes,
doing is you're administering. So do people come to you for counseling as well, like for spiritual counseling, for, what I'm saying, if they having, personal or emotional issues, do they come to you as well for that?
abs- absolutely, absolutely. I have phone calls regularly with people, and for me, it happens, before the pandemic when we were physically going to work all the time.
Mm,
You provide
mm,
counsel for people on your lunch break. You provide counsel for people after work. People would say, "Hey, can I call you and speak to you?" I said, "Sure, call me tonight. We'll talk." People need that like spiritual guidance from you.
mm,
So, but what I want to say to
mm,
you too, as a minister, you got to study regularly. You got to be in the Word because you can't give off wisdom and knowledge to people if you don't have it. So,
mm,
as a
mm.
minister, you have to have a discipline to study the scriptures regularly. You have to also have a prayer life where you're praying, and you have to also be tapped into a community of believers so that if you don't have the answer, you can go to your pastor and get the answer. But I think sometimes being a minister, people think they have to be separate. We are a
Right.
community of, influence, and you have to know who your community of influence is as a minister and know who to go to when you need help. Yeah,
Mm. Mm. You just kind of gave me something, man, where you kind of actually you just gave me a new understanding of what because I would use those terms to not interchangeably,
hmm
and it kind of hit me that they're actually a pastor is something different than a reverend. That's something different, and a minister is something different, right? So
yeah,
these are different functions within this particular body of spirituality. I get it now. Okay,
yes,
so
mhm.
it seems to me that ministering would be, you're kind of, especially for a community, you know, for lack of better terms, like the go-to guy, like someone that, people could go to lean on. Um,
Yes.
wouldn't it be wonderful if there were 100 ministers?
You,
You know what I'm
you,
saying?
you
Right in
brought up
your
a great
immediate
point.
area that did just as much as you did. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be something? Because isn't that something that our people need right now?
I have to tell you, you just brought up a great point. There is a group of ministers. You have like the ministers associations. That's why I think
Mm,
it's important as a minister to be a part of those because you have like a cadre of ministers who attend different churches. They have meetings regularly. So to be a part of one of those associations, that gives you more hands and more arms, So I think being a part
gotcha.
of those particular ministry organizations, associations in your area, that will help you connect with other people so you can get more done in your community. Like you may be the expert when it comes to media. I may be the expert when it comes to networking. But if we're ministers and we know each other and we work together, guess what? That makes us stronger. So,
Absolutely.
yep. So you got it. You got it.
Man, absolutely. All right, man. So that makes me feel good. I got that concept. Man, it's this conversation is just so enlightening for me, and I had a feeling it would be. I really
Thank
did,
you
man.
for having me today.
So, man, brother, you really helping me out. So to kind of wrap up, as we're getting close to the time, um, I wanted to talk about real quick, man, this COVID thing, man, and what's going on right now in the city. I know I'm here in Arizona, and it's a pretty big hotbed out here. There's a lot going on out here as far as COVID. Um, how has that impacted, what you do, how you reach out to the youth, or has there been an impact at all? How's this COVID thing been, man, in the city? Because, looking at your mayor, I'm like, what is this guy even talking about? Or your governor, rather. What is this guy talking about? So
Currently,
what?
mhm.
Hmm?
Currently, in the early stages of the pandemic, it was really difficult, but you have to be very strategic now in the New York City sector and still do business, but learn how to do business in creative ways. Like I've used Zoom for the past 9, 10 months
Hmm.
because without
Hmm.
Zoom, I don't think I would be working like a 9 to 5 job. But I've been working from my home for like 10 months, and
Mm.
I'm thankful for Zoom.
Same here. Hmm.
But that platform has been amazing for networking events. I've done like empowerment events, employment readiness workshops for my community, resume writing workshops, LinkedIn workshops. I had like a George Floyd Zoom event. I had almost 100 people on the Zoom session talking about the George Floyd case. So I think
Wow.
right
Okay.
now you got to be very strategic
Mm.
to get things done in during COVID-19. And I think New York City is doing that. New York City is resilient.
Hmm.
It's a resilient
Hmm.
like place.
Yeah,
Right
it
now,
is.
you can't really dine in at restaurants in New York City, which is sort of sad. You can purchase your food and leave, but we're making the best of what we have. I think our mayor, our governor is doing the best that he possibly can. And I think our safety, is the number one thing that's really important to him to save lives. So, and I think he's doing
Have,
a great job.
have you had any personal impact? Have you had any
Oh,
personal impact with
great
that?
question. I lost 4 family members to the virus. I've
Wow.
done
Okay.
5 funerals,
Mm.
for family members as well as my community. But I've been resilient. It's been tough. I've had some highs
Mm.
and some lows during the pandemic, but my faith has kept me really strong and has helped me
Awesome.
persevere through the rough patches. Because it was a period where we
Awesome.
lost like 4 family members back to back to back, but we're still standing.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, brother. You know what? I see this as a prelude of things to come. To
Yes.
be
Thank you
honest
for
with you.
having me.
Oh man, absolutely, man. And I want to have more conversations with you, and with other like-minded brothers as yourself. And I want to start creating kind of this forum for us as Black men to kind of really just get together and have these types of conversations, man. Because we can't worry about what's going on so much out there when we got so much to work on within our community. You feel
Yes.
what I'm saying? So,
I
brother Mark,
appreciate you
thank you so
changing the
much.
narrative. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Please let the community know, my audience know where they can reach out to you in case they want to help in some kind of way, follow what you're doing, let them know where they can find you and any projects you're working on right now, and
Beautiful.
you can close us out.
I'm actually can be reached at on IG. I dare you to dream on IG. They can reach me on Facebook at Marc Thompson, MERC Thompson. They can reach me on LinkedIn at Marc Thompson, Director of Business Development, or by email, Mark, MERC dot Thompson, THOMPSON dot BC at gmail.com. And I'm currently working on some empowerment workshops that I'm going to be doing, and I'll definitely share that with you if anybody in your particular circle will be interested in participating. But thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Give me the heads up, man, and we could definitely plug you in, man. May have you with the whole group. All right. So
Thank
that'll
you
be
so much.
awesome. Brother Mark, thank you so much, family. You know what to
Have a good
do.
night.
Like, share, um, do all of that. Comment, and follow the brother Marc Thompson on IG. I dare you to dream. You can email him mark.thompson.bc@gmail.com. Follow what he's doing, man. He's working with the youth. He's working with, men coming out of prison, finding jobs and just building and restoring their lives, man. And he's dedicated himself to being a servant leader. And you can't ask for anything better than that, man. That's what life is all about, especially for a black man. Brother Mark, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to JShoulders, the lab. You guys have a great evening. I'll see you on the next show. Peace, family. Peace,
Have a
Brother
good night.
Mark. Talk to you soon. You as well.